Good evening and welcome to Lithgow City Council Ordinary Meeting of Council of 28th of August 2023. Acknowledgement of Country. Lithgow City Council acknowledges Wiradjuri elders past and present of the Wiradjuri Nation, the original custodians of the land on which the Lithgow communities reside. The Council also extends our respects to our neighbouring nations. Declaration of webcasting. I inform all those in attendance at this meeting that the meeting is being webcast and that those in attendance should refrain from making any defamatory statements concerning any person, councillor or employee, and refrain from discussing those matters subject to closed council proceedings as indicated in clause 14.1 of the Code of Meeting Practice. Councillors are all present this evening, so there's no apologies. Declarations of interest. Are there any councillors wishing to have a declaration of interest noted today?
Yes.
Councillor Marnie.
10.2.1.3 relating to the DA 0844/23, which is the Lithgow Women's Shed multi-purpose building. I'm the president of the Lithgow Workies Wolves Rugby League Club, and we have provided views on this matter. So, but I see it as a non-pecuniary declaration. I don't see it influencing my vote.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary meeting of Council held on the 24th of July 2023. Have a mover, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Have a seconder, thank you. Councillor Goodwin, I think. Councillor Goodwin. All those in favour say aye.
Actually, I wish to speak to it.
Yes, certainly, Councillor Leslie.
I note that there is no minutes of the Operations Committee, which was held on Monday the 7th of August. That was 3 weeks ago. We do have committee meetings for crime prevention also held on the 7th of August, finance on the 9th of August, community development on the 15th of August. Have the Operations Committee minutes been held over because the administration did not want the discussion on the women's shed to become public?
I'll just ask the General Manager to address your question. Thank you, Councillor Leslie.
I apologise if the minutes aren't there for the meeting. No, there was no intent in that. We've had a bit on our plate of late, and but they should be at this meeting. I'll need to chase that up with the Director.
You're happy with that, Councillor Leslie?
No.
Well, I apologise. I don't know why that has occurred, but there has been some incidents that just in the last week or so that's been probably out of the ordinary. So I hope you accept our explanation, and the General Manager will look into that tomorrow. Thank you. Commemorations and announcements.
I'll have my name recorded as having voted against the minutes. Thank you.
All those in favour say aye. Against? Councillor Leslie and Councillor Ring. Carried. Thank you. On behalf of Lithgow City Council as Mayor, I express sincere sympathy and condolences to families that have lost loved ones since our last meeting of Council. Point 7, public forum.
Madam Mayor, I have a question on commemorations and announcements. It's the lack of an announcement. Actually, I was wondering if we could get an understanding of when the Gap Road will be opened.
Mr. General Manager.
I'll get an advice on that and forward that by way of memorandum to the Council. What we're waiting for is the disaster recovery funding to be recouped that Council has outlaid. And once we receive some of that funding and upfront funding for the $25 million of other disaster works that we'll be doing over the next 2 years, we'll restart these projects. But I'll get a more extensive advice to councillors tomorrow.
Anybody else wishing to make an announcement? I'll move on then. Public forum. Any person registers to speak during the public forum on matters included in the business paper are registered via the Council website prior to 12 noon on the day of the meeting and will have the opportunity to speak. There will only be 2 speakers for and against on each matter on the business paper. Public forum will be allocated half an hour time in total, with each speaker having 3 minutes to speak. Speakers not registered in public forum will have the opportunity to speak on matters in the business paper if time permits. Tonight we have 5 people that have registered. Mr. Robert Setter from Energy Australia. Would you like to come forward? Thank you, Mr. Setter.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors. My name's Robert Setter. I'm the Environment Licensing Approvals Lead for Energy Australia for the Mount Piper Battery Energy Storage Project. I'm here tonight to talk about our development application DA 06423, which, if approved, will enable us to undertake subsurface site investigation works in relation to the Mount Piper Battery Energy Storage Project. The proposed site is located directly adjacent to Mount Piper, on land that was used as a laydown area for the construction of the power station. This land is completely owned by EA, is zoned for electricity generating works, and is heavily disturbed, having been completely cleared and levelled during the construction of the power station. The activities proposed in this application include the drilling of 62 boreholes to varying depths, of which approximately 5 will be retained as water monitoring bores, the excavation of approximately 9 test pits, the excavation of approximately 6 shallow test pits, the establishment of 5 intersecting geophysical investigation lines, and clearing of approximately 1.7 kilometres of track, which will just be clearing existing understory vegetation for that. Through the drilling of these boreholes, we'll be able to gather information that is critical to the planning of the Mount Piper Battery project, such as groundwater information, confirming the existence and locations of mine voids, soil contamination, as well as geological information. The studies that have been conducted as part of this application include noise, visual, heritage, water and biodiversity. And these studies showed that there will be no significant impact as a result of the proposed activity. There has been no adverse feedback about the project to date, and I wish to confirm that the works will be carried out in compliance with relevant environmental and safety requirements. We request your support of this application so that we can progress with the development of the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Setter. The next speaker this evening is Anne Hopkins, please. Oh, we have Leanne going to speak. Thank you, Leanne. Lithgow Women's Shed.
Tonight I'm representing the Lithgow Area Women's Shed. In February 22 we received a Black Summer Bushfire Recovery Grant of $2.1 million to build a combined women's shed and multifunction space. This comprises a workshop and facilities, and the multifunction space to be used by the Lithgow community comprises a meeting room, 2 offices, kids and babies rooms and a kitchen space. The choice of this site, a Tony Ligeti Showground, was unanimously voted upon last year. Upon completion, this building will be added to Council's infrastructure assets. Somewhere in the DA process recently, our DA had a condition attached that we provide a 59-car space car park. This is unobtainable. It will cost upwards of $800,000. This was not mentioned until recently, and our funds do not cover a car park, just the building itself. It will also change the stormwater management, meaning additional cost. This building is to be located less than 4 metres from the fence, running from the skate park to the basketball stadium. If you look on page 26 of our business papers, they show an outline of the site in red. We never intended to develop or use this whole site. The building is approximately 575 square metres, and we had always intended that the rest of the site continue to be used as an informal car park during sporting events, as it has been for decades. We propose an access gate to be placed behind this building, allowing access to the existing council car park. Tonight is a pivotal night in our project. This build needs to start as soon as possible if we are to meet the grant timeline. If we hand back these funds, the community will not only lose the amenities, but also local tradies and suppliers will also be denied access to benefiting from the funds in this grant. As we don't have access to $800,000, we are requesting that the 59 space car park be completely removed as a condition of the DA approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Leanne. Mr.
Just a point
Ray-Smith?
of order, please, sorry.
Yes, Councillor.
It's referencing the wrong DA, the wrong on our screens. It should be 10.2.1.3.
You right, Sarah? Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Mr. Ray-Smith, thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to speak on the geotechnical investigation works going on at Mount Walker Lake Lyell Hydro Project. I received some information back from you guys the other day and I find some anomalies in this. The now approved modification DA 013-23 leaves questions to be asked. Where is the licensed waste facility and was it used in the last borehole feasibility study? The individual who prepares the soil and water management plans is not mentioned by name. Are they qualified and why is this not completed before the approval was given? The construction environmental management plan also still to be done, but again not completed before the approval was given. Does the public receive this information, especially in the area of complaints management and handling procedures? Traffic management plan is also prepared prior to the operation. The residents on Girraween Drive and Oaky Forest Road get notified and informed about complaint procedures and general operations. Archaeological discoveries, what independent bodies would be on site if any is found, and who knows otherwise what would happen. Who monitors the works to ensure there is no impact to the Farmers Creek and Lake Lyell area? The rehabilitation of the site is questionable as referenced in the previous DA 070-22. Note, has councillors and council staff received the required information prior to working commencing? And what independent bodies will be engaged to ensure the quality of work? In summary, now Energy Australia has decided to relocate the upper stories, the information provided states an approximate area but still relatively undefined. Is this a complete about face to the original reservoir and become an earthen dam which may possibly scarf the western and southern sides of Mount Walker and thus becoming increasingly less aesthetic and destroying much more of the environment and vegetation? Rumours abound why the original reservoir site has been abandoned. Was suitable ground detected during the first lot of boreholes? We don't know. Due to confidentiality, Energy Australia doesn't let us know. Or is this just a case of trying to appease the public by saying they're moving it slightly out of sight? What this does do effectively, though, it reduces the working pumped hydro elevation height from approximately 280-90 metres down to 250-260 metres. Recommended working pumped hydro elevations in projects is recommended between 500 to 600 metres. This starts to make this project insignificant to other pumped hydro projects, especially if drought kicks in, it will cease to operate if it goes ahead. Note, pumped hydros in the right location are of value, but this project does not rank as a preferred site. EA is showing it will not divulge
Move an
results.
extension.
Second.
Councillor Coleman and Councillor Ring, thank you. All those in favour say aye. Carried, thank you.
EA is showing they will not divulge results of the previous feasibility studies. This now change of directions must pose questions. Councillors and staff and council staff, I ask you to seek serious feedback and give it to the local Lithgow constituents, Lithgow and area constituents, so they can assess the project as to its real long-term economical, tourist and recreational value. And just about a couple of points before I finish. I have requested to you guys before who is stakeholders in this issue. You've said you're going to get back a couple of times to me on this particular thing, and I've never received anything in regards to that. And The submission area, I do appreciate that I did get a feedback on the last submission I put in, and I noticed you make a real point about submissions and what submissions have gone in, and if they don't go in, you make a point of that too. So my submissions, I've only actually received one positive response, which wasn't really a response at all because it never answered any of my questions. So I'm starting to wonder if these submissions are a total waste of time. So I'm just asking you guys to maybe start answering some of the questions, and do we have some sort of public forum on what submissions do go in? Thank you.
Mr. Smith, would you mind if Council has a list of your requirements and your questions tonight so that we can give you an answer?
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Mark Hoy, on behalf of the Lithgow Business Association or Chamber of Commerce, thank you.
Thank you, Mark Hoy from the Lithgow District Chamber of Commerce, current President. Thank you to the Mayor, the General Manager and Councillors for the opportunity to update everyone on the Chamber's proposed Investor Day to be held in February 2024. A meeting was organised at the Green Spot site last Thursday, where a large number of influential government departments and major stakeholders attended either in person or by Zoom to an information session regarding the proposed Investor Day. In attendance were CEOs, directors and economic development managers from regional New South Wales, as well as representatives from Green Spot, Energy Australia, National Parks, General Property Maintenance Project Manager Steve Saladine, who was in charge of the regeneration of the Wirral Power Station site and other power station sites. Rich Evans from the foundations and David Norris representing ICN Industry Capability Networking that has over 85,000 members. We acknowledge the meeting was called at short notice and that the General Manager was unable to attend due to meetings with ministers in Sydney. The Investor Day will be held over 2 days at the Black and Gold Cabins, where potential investors will be invited to stay and attend the official opening on the evening beforehand, and either the Premier or invited government ministers will hopefully be there to open the event. After the opening, an informal dinner on the Tuesday evening, investors will spend Wednesday morning in the conference facilities, where a presentation showcasing the overview of Lithgow and the surrounding area's potential for economic development. This will include diversification through manufacturing, agribusiness, including food processing and tourism. In the afternoon, the investors will be divided into groups where they will have the opportunity to visit existing sites such as Green Spot, Talus, Ferrero and the foundations, with the potential to consider possible industrial land as an alternative to their current locations in metropolitan areas. We hope to initiate discussions between interested parties and the local stakeholders to achieve real investment in the community. We are very aware of the importance of transitioning our region, and our role as a business chamber is to invite suitable industries to participate in Lithgow's emerging economy transition plan facilitated by Council. We see this as an opportunity to help transition our economy by drawing awareness to the huge potential that our area offers. We look forward to working with Council and other stakeholders in developing and promoting a positive outlook for our economy now and in the future. So just a bit of an insight into, some of the work that we are trying to achieve. This is on the back of our Lifestyle Expo that we held at the foundations, where over 90 businesses were in attendance, which was a fairly successful weekend, I think. So just bringing that to everybody's attention, that we'd like to share that with you as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hoy. Mr. Anthony Craig, not in the audience tonight? No? Anybody from the public now wishing to speak? We'll move on to our first notice of motion this evening. Notices of motion. 9.1, notice of motion. Councillor Ring, draft Marangaroo structure plan. Have a mover, thank you.
I'll move that, Councillor Stapleton.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. A seconder, thank you.
I'm happy to second.
Thank
Sorry.
you, Councillor Marnie. Councillor Ring.
At the previous council meeting, councillors unanimously voted to note the scoping report prepared by council in respect of the green spot rezoning proposal, as opposed to administration's recommendation to endorse it. This notice of motion is a logical extension of the decision made by councillors at that meeting. On page 22 of the administration's report at the previous meeting, it states that it is unclear whether the potential of the Marangaroo URA will be realised, and if so, when. This statement is clearly at odds with the administration's commentary on my notice of motion, which is quite extensive, and whether or not there have been developers talking to the council is really irrelevant. Council doesn't own the land. Residents don't want to sell. The RMS will not lower the speed to 80 kilometres to allow a turn off from the highway into the proposed development if it ever occurs. RMS are adamant they want an overpass. The overpass, I have been advised through Regional New South Wales, would be a cost of about $160 million. In addition, there is $20 to $40 million worth of trunk infrastructure, water, sewerage that needs to go into this area. In the last council, the administration put forward a grant application to the state government to seek funding for that trunk infrastructure. It was refused because council owns none of the lands. In the current and future economic climate, no government is going to fund $160 million overpass into what is essentially a private development. Now, the plan itself, the structure plan and the concept is good, but it's been on the books for 40 years. Council has never bought any land in this area. I'm not asking to wipe it out. What I am moving is that we put it to the back burners, we do not waste any more resources on it, and that the administration focus their attention and limited resources on pursuing those commercial opportunities that will provide us with a good outcome in the short to medium term, both for housing, residential, and for industrial lands. They're there. This plan, down the track, it may or may not ever happen, but it needs to be put on the back burner.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Councillor Marnie.
I thank Councillor Ring for bringing forward this notice of motion. I think most councillors would know that I have a very active interest in housing. There's clearly what I would describe more as a need than a demand. And I think we need to separate those elements out. The housing crisis may be seen to be being generated over 4 decades, but I would put forward that I think it has accelerated dramatically in the last 5 years. I am interested in as diverse a range of housing options that we possibly can get, and if they come out of other proposals, I'm happy to see those come forward. I'm also interested in the notion that we have a forum. Now, I'm a bit perplexed around this, given that I brought early in my term a motion to have an information session on housing needs in this region and a community forum, which I was voted down by. And I found that quite unbelievable, to be honest. It was like sitting on a level railway crossing with a freight train hurtling towards us, wondering whether we should move off it or not. To me, the crisis was clear as on its way, and we needed to start this discussion and conversation much earlier. What Councillor Ring has brought forward is to say we need to diversify those pathways to bringing forward additional housing stock that doesn't only just meet demand, it needs to meet need. And I'm very deliberate on why I'm saying that. Where there is a demand, for a sector of houses that will come out of Marangaroo. There's a demand for families and others to use that. There's also a demand from investors to buy into these settings. We need the housing to fit our workforce, and I was quite excited by one of the proposals that came in front of us that talked directly to that need. And I certainly feel I don't want to have a waiting for Godot moment with Marangaroo, where we're not moving on. Why aren't we moving on? Because we're waiting for Marangaroo. When's Marangaroo coming? I don't know when it's coming, but should we move on? No, I think we should just wait and see what's happening. So I think Councillor Rings brought through a bit of a circuit breaker as far as trying to get diversity into the system. So I'm happy to support the proposal or the motion brought forward by Councillor Ring.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Anybody else wish? Councillor O'Connor?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. While I agree with everything that's said, I would like to put in an amendment for number one, to hold a councillor information session regarding the whole urban release area, find out if the state government is going to fund it or not, or if they're willing to assist with the plan in any way, and if there's any genuine developers have come to the area looking to acquire any land. And after the information session, if it gets through, if there's nothing progressed to a point where the development is not happening, then I'd be happy to go back to Councillor Ring's original thing and wipe it. The whole thing is, I'd like to see the whole thing progress. It's good for the area if it did, for the whole area, and it looks good for developers to come to the area if there's more land available. But there's no land available because it's all privately owned. And also, there's no infrastructure whatsoever, electricity, sewer, nothing out there. So I'm happy if we can get the
Point of order,
need a
Mayor, if I
seconder.
could please.
Yes.
Yeah, we need a seconder, but can we have it up on the screen so we can understand what's been said? Have you got it there? Can it go up to the front?
I'll uphold that point of order, thank you. Yes, if we could get more information, that'd be great, thank you. Is that better, Councillor Coleman?
Look, I just don't understand what's been put and I need to see
Yeah,
it,
that's
please,
okay.
if I could.
Councillor O'Connor requires a seconder. I think Councillor McGee might have had his hand up first, actually. Councillor McGee?
Yeah, I totally support the amendment in that I do think we need a report brought back to an information session. We need more information on this. I don't think that we're spending excessive amounts of money, to my understanding, on this currently. But I think that if it can be proven that the long-term viability is still there, then it is worth keeping the ball rolling, so to speak, because the short-term areas we have in train, and I think that the long-term goal, there's going to come a point when those private owners, it will become lucrative to sell that land. And $160 million for an overpass won't be that much money. And that's how far we have to look ahead.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Anyone else wishing to speak?
I would like to speak, but I want to see the amendment first, if I could. So do we know how? Coming up?
While Mayor Statham, while that's being typed, I'd like to speak to the motion if I could, to the amendment.
Yes, certainly.
Basically, I don't support it because at the end of the day, I'm not asking to stop the work. I'm asking for it to be put on the back burner. There is no infrastructure, and as I've said, we've gone to government before, and basically they laughed at this council for asking for up to $40 million for land we do not own. It's that simple. Councillor McGlee thinks in the future it's had long-term viability, and that's true. Long-term viability it could be. But in the short to medium term, it's not. And $160 million today in 10, 15 years is going to be a hell of a lot more. Along that stretch of road, there's very few areas where you could put an overpass, given the proximity of the railway. So no, I don't support the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Councillor Coleman, have you?
Yeah, look, I'll speak anyway. Look, Marangaroo structure plan has been around for what, 41 years, I believe. And then in 1982, it was really very brave of the council of the day to have a progressive vision. However, in 2023, council needs to ensure that this vision doesn't get in the way of any other concept, which really greatly concerns me. On the weekend, my partner and I visited one of the properties that is owned in regards to Marangaroo, draft Marangaroo structure plan. We were given the opportunity to collect wood, and I cannot see that particular property being sold in my lifetime, not even in my daughter's lifetime. It has generational value. In saying that, I note in the management's comments, and it's been widely acknowledged that we do have an undersupply of housing, and it has been a greatest failure of government and markets in the last 4 decades. I'm very supportive that Lithgow is well placed to capitalise on the recent state and federal government housing reform agenda. So I'm a little bit with Councillor Marnie. It is disappointing that we currently don't have a policy position. And I would encourage Councillor Marnie to bring forward his notice of motion again, or perhaps the administration could bring forward a report, considering majority of the management comment is actually about housing. Councillor Ring isn't saying dump the project, he's saying put it on the back burner. And I think that that is a good way forward.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. It's on the screen now for everybody's information. Would anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Bright?
The idea of holding an information session with all the information so that we can make much better decisions on this. As it's been going on for 40 years. I don't think another council meeting difference is going to make any difference to this. It would be better for us to be better informed. Most of us aren't sure about what was going on in the last 40 years. We need all that historical data. We need to understand it a bit better. So I'm happy to support Councillor O'Connor's motion so that we can be better informed on this decision.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Leslie?
Yes, I wish to speak against both the amendment and the motion. I don't believe we need another...
Councillor Leslie, we have an amendment before the council at the moment, so I'll deal with that first and come back to you then. Anybody else wishing to speak? You can speak to the amendment, but you can't speak to the motion.
Okay. I don't believe we need another information session on this. Nothing will happen with that estate. 40% of the land there is owned by one owner, a deceased estate. Nothing will happen with that deceased estate until the beneficiaries of that estate believe that there's some gain for themselves or some necessity to part with the property. And until that happens, nothing's going to happen. An information session may be of interest, but it's not going to change anything. So I think we're just wasting our time. But I do thank Councillor Ring for bringing this matter to our attention.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Goodwin, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I also thank Councillor Ring for bringing this to the council. I too am worried that we're putting a lot of emphasis on the Murray when it appears to the community that nothing's happening in this space. It's definitely a long-term plan. However, we keep making major developers reference the Murray in their DAs that they submit. I'm aware that we have to plan well into the future for development. However, when it impacts on developers that are willing to set up their businesses, spend money and create new jobs, I just wonder what weight council puts on the developers in their response in their DA processes when referencing the Murray. Do we speak with developers after the DA submissions and find out what's easy and what's difficult during this process? I'm sure that referencing the Murray and how their development will impact or not impact the Murray, that is a long-term plan, is very difficult. This subject's been raised many times here in council, and it appears that still not much is happening. However, after reading the report that council have given us, it appears that there are positive conversations that are being had with the Transport New South Wales regarding the exit and entry onto the highway. I'd like to have a time frame on the council's briefing session that was proposed into the social and economic impacts of housing supply constraints, where we can raise issues regarding the Murray and revisit this motion at a council meeting after that briefing. So I support the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Councillor O'Connor, right of reply?
No, I think everything's been said. Thank you.
I'll put the amendment. All those in favour of the amendment? All those against? Carried. I'll call a division. Thank you. All those in favour? Councillor Bryce, Councillor Goodwin, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor Marnie, Councillor McGee and Councillor Statham. Against? Sorry.
He had his hand up the wrong time. So Councillor Marnie's against.
Sorry, Councillor Marnie's against. You had your hand up when I said that's okay. That's okay. Councillor Leslie, Councillor Ring and Councillor Coleman. Thank you. The amendment now becomes the motion. All those in favour of the motion? Carried. All those against? Thank you. Carried. 9.2, notice of motion, Councillor Ring, Walgan Road, Tennis Courts, Lidsdale. Have a mover, thank you.
I'll move it.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. A seconder, thank you. Councillor O'Connor.
Second with recommendation, a motion, an amendment, sorry.
I need a seconder first, thank you. Councillor Bryce. Councillor Ring, thank you.
The issue of this facility was brought to my attention at a recent meeting with the Wallerawang Lidsdale Progress Association. I investigated the facility, found that their concerns were legitimate, and attended another meeting where the Mayor and the Director of Infrastructure was there, and they did talk about doing a study on parks. That's fine. But as a governing body, it is our role to set the strategic direction and the policy of this council. It is our role to determine and finalise the budget and make those decisions. Now, in reviewing this, I looked at the Charles Appland property, which was subdivided and sold during the last council. The voluntary planning agreement for that allowed for $3,000 for open space and facilities for the 34 blocks. Council did not want or require open space in this development because of the proximity of this park. Those funds should be used to repair and bring up to speed this facility because they are within its catchment. And I do not believe funds from these developers should go into a slush fund. I think it should focus on the area where the works are being done. Moving forward, a lot of these developments will be done outside of the Lithgow area. Those communities already have poorer standards of facilities. They deserve to get them up and running. We have a park where children play, where there's this asbestos-ridden building, potentially, which is taped off just with plastic tape. It needs to go. Basic things like a sign for men and women on the toilets needs to be done. Shade cloth for the children's playground needs to be put up. These aren't big ticket items. You're going to see growth in young families in this area, and I have no doubt when a report is done by council on facilities, this area will become important. I believe the funds should be kept in the area where the works are being done to benefit that part of the community.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Councillor Bryce.
I'm just going to wait till Councillor O'Connor has his amendment to speak on it.
Is that, oh, you,
We can't, unable to do that, Councillor Bryce.
Isn't Councillor O'Connor putting in a...
Yes, but you seconded Councillor Ring's.
No, I've got nothing to say.
Yeah, you don't need to speak. Councillor, anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor O'Connor?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And thanks for Councillor Ring for bringing it up. It needs it. The amendment I have that recommend that Council investigate the demolition of the current structure that contain asbestos, hold the contributions from that subdivision in the restricted fund until we work it out, determine recreational infrastructure needs for Lidsdale via community consultation, design and cost the infrastructure needed, determine the means to fund it, including through the use of the developer contributions. And given that the area, as was said, will increase with the increase of 34 residential blocks, it is vital that the community has recreational facilities for their use. And it is evident when exploring this area, it has been totally forgotten out there, where there's virtually been no development except these 34 lots. Now, when Litco, for example...
excuse me, Councillor O'Connor, you just need a seconder. They've got the idea of what your amendment is aiming for, so I need a seconder for that. Thank you. Can I have Councillor McGee? Thank you. You can continue now, Councillor O'Connor. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. The whole area, we have a basketball court, but there's only one outdoor basketball hoop in the whole area, and that's it, alongside the existing basketball court. There's nowhere else. There's other things other than tennis courts that could be put up. There could be a skate park once we investigate it. Other means for families with young kids. That's my say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Councillor McGee.
Yes, I support Councillor O'Connor's amendment in that, once again, I think we need more information on this, a comprehensive list of the state of repair of all of the assets involved with this tennis court park, because if we get and a list of what we want to achieve with that, tennis courts are an extremely expensive asset to maintain, and you want to make sure people are going to be using and appreciating that asset if you're going to do it up and have it up to scratch, or especially getting on top of the anything asbestos prone in the area before you start attracting people. Let's get on top of that, get some prices and a list of what is there and what, through community consultation, what we want there, what they want there. And also how many of these 34 houses have been built already? What is the time frame there? Are there any DAs in? Are they being built now? Are they being built next year? When? So what sort of time frame are we looking at for this, So is this urgent or is this a 5-year plan?
like to speak? Sorry.
Councillor Bryce?
I agree that we need community consultation. We need to decide what's best out there. Obviously, the tennis courts haven't been used for a very long time. So putting them back into play would not be worth the money. We would need, there is a skate park at Wang that is quite new, great facility at Wang that's not far from Lidsdale. A lot of the Lidsdale kids would use that. But let's look at other areas and let's get the community involved, a community session, and then cost it out and see and come back to this community. The other thing is too, the voluntary payment should be part of the whole Lithgow. Places like Cullumbullen will not ever get anything. There's not going to be any development out there. So this fund needs to also spread out to some of these other smaller communities. So it'd be good to see if we can get some, the Lithgow, the Wang Lidsdale Progress Association, the Lidsdale people, because it mainly affects Lidsdale, and have their residents out there tell us what they would like.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor Marnie, I think you may have had your hand up a moment ago, did you?
Yes, thanks.
Yes, thank
Mayor
you.
Stephen. I'm going to speak against the amendment. I'll first start with my understanding is this issue is being brought to light by the Wallerawang Lidsdale Progress Association, so a representative group of those communities. My concern is what we have in this situation is a reflection of the importance of asset management plans, so we don't find ourselves in these situations where we've got reactive maintenance or complete renewal of assets facing us. These should be sitting in a risk register in that asset plan, and that we should have seen this one coming at us. The fact that it's got perhaps bonded asbestos material or not, we don't know the condition of it, concerns me, that we don't have a plan for how we deal with asbestos in these public spaces. I think we need to set aside a discrete fund to address what is a significant public safety issue. In regard to small communities, I'm very much a supporter of small communities being seen and heard in these conversations. It's quite likely that many of those settings will see subdivision development, rural residential development, and there needs to be funds, and whilst I agree with the overall principle of bringing in restricted assets and having targeted expenditure, I think we need to look at part of our village improvement plans, how we can realise the aspirations of those communities on delivering on these outcomes. I think the community doesn't have a great tolerance for us closing assets indefinitely, and this is the legacy of not having asset management plans in place in 2023. And unfortunately, as Councillor Rings brought forward, this is a situation where we're now dealing with a legacy issue coming out of that. The fact that works have not yet been designed and costed, which is the statement in the report, is also indicative of that failure of that system. Those systems identify these risks, identify the costs and the works required, and then we work through how we can afford it. So in my view, I can't support the amendment, and I feel in some ways it's almost a direct negative in some of the things that's been raised in the motion. And we need to start intervening on this trajectory of failed or failing assets, and the option of just putting red and white tape around it isn't an option anymore.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Coleman?
Yes, I would like to speak. Thank you, Mayor Statham. I'm going to speak against the amendment as well. I note in the management comments it states that there appears to be a need for an upgrade of recreation facilities in Lidsdale. That's very clear in the management's comment. Councillor Ring has made it very clear in his notice of motion that a recent meeting of the Wallerawang Lidsdale Progress Association residents raised these concerns. As far as I'm concerned, it ticks the box of community consultation. So as far as I'm concerned, this is needed and we should support our rural communities in regards to this issue. I do have a question. In the management comment, it states that the council is undertaking a review of the city's growth patterns going forward. My question is, when did this commence and when will it be finished?
Would you like an answer to that now, Councillor Coleman?
I'm happy to have that on notice. They can come back to me in a memo.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Leslie?
Yes, I'd just like to comment on the philosophy of voluntary planning agreements. My understanding is that you have these agreements as compensation for the potential harm to a community arising from developments within their area. Now, that may not be legally the case, but I certainly should be morally the case, and therefore using a voluntary planning agreement on this site seems appropriate. Now, it might be nice to spend it at Cullenbullen, but it's not relevant. If we want to spend something at Cullenbullen, then we do so on its merits. So I'd just like to just raise that issue.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Anyone else? Councillor Goodwin?
Thanks, Ms. Statham. This facility, and although I do agree with the motion, this facility has been neglected for a very long time and work needs to be planned around the facility. Money for the VPA is going to a restricted pool of money that can be drawn upon for outdoor public places and amenities. There should be forward planning, or there is forward planning in budgets that occur yearly and throughout the 4 years, a 4-year plan, and there's a list of projects that we're working on budgets. I'm happy for the funds to be directed to the Lidsdale public tennis area. However, I don't believe that the entire $112,000 be allocated, as it may be significantly less or significantly more than that. That's where I can't see that I can support it. I would like to see a costing and a budget and possible time frame to come back so I can determine the amount that is required and what it could be used for, as the tennis courts don't appear to have legs at the moment.
I very rarely ever add to anything. I keep chairing the meeting. However, I did attend that meeting at Wallerawang as mayor, and there was probably 10, maybe 12 people attended. I know of 2 from Lidsdale. We need to have consultation with the Lidsdale people, not the Wallerawang people. We need to know what the Lidsdale people need. That is not community consultation going to a meeting. Right of reply. Thank you, Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you. One thing, at least it was healthy debate, and I'm happy for that. Thank you.
I'll put the motion, the amendment. All those in favour of the amendment? There will be a division. Councillor Bryce, Councillor Goodwin, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor McGee, Councillor Statham. Against? Councillor Marnie, Councillor Leslie, Councillor Ring and Councillor Coleman. Thank you. The amendment becomes a motion. All those in favour of the motion, thank you. A division. Councillor, hands up please. Councillor Bryce, Councillor Goodwin, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor McGee, Councillor Statham. Against? Councillor Coleman, Councillor Ring, Councillor Leslie and Councillor Marnie. Staff reports, Local Government New South Wales Conference 2023. Can I have somebody move this? Thank you.
I'd like to move it be deferred till the next council meeting.
Have a seconder, thank you.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Who seconded that, sorry? Oh, thank you, Councillor Ring. Councillor Coleman?
The leadership team will probably change next month because we have mayoral and deputy mayoral elections. So I think it'd be best that we wait until that outcome has gone to fruition. So I think we should wait till next month.
Councillor Ring?
I agree with Councillor Coleman. Makes sense.
Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor Marnie?
Whilst agreeing with the motion, or the amendment, sorry, motion, my apologies. Could perhaps the forming up motions to be taken to the conference be brought to an information session? I think they're well constructed and they're very much hitting the mark, but it might be good for the councillors as a group to have a conversation in regard to that.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Mr General Manager? Happy to do that.
Oh yeah, that's a fine suggestion. We're always seeking feedback from the councillors about motions if we haven't accounted for your wants in that current list.
Thank you, Mr General Manager. Anybody else wishing to speak tonight? Councillor O'Connor?
Yes, I wish to go with the original, and regardless of who the leadership is, I want to put up the mayor and deputy mayor, and that's all to go to this conference.
You're proposing that as an amendment, Councillor O'Connor, just so...
Yes, an amendment, I should have said, yes.
I need a second of Councillor McGee. Okay. Councillor McGee.
Yeah, I think that...
Connie, would you like to speak to that first, please?
Yep, that's all I want to say, that two people, the mayor and deputy mayor, regardless of who they are, is more than enough in the present circumstances to go anywhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Councillor McGee?
I agree. Mayor and deputy mayor are our representatives, our top people. We send whoever they are.
Anyone else wishing to speak, please? Councillor Rick?
I have a question for you, Mayor, to the administration. Could we please be advised what the cost of membership of Local Government New South Wales is, please?
Mr General Manager or Mr...
Through you, Mayor Statham, the cost is around about $40,000 for this financial year.
Okay, for $40,000 we're entitled to free votes, and we should have free votes there. Otherwise, what is the point of us having a meeting to discuss any motions we want to take to this meeting? We're going to quibble over a few $1,000s to send the third person to vote when we're spending $40,000 a year for this organisation. We need to get benefit out of this. Free councillors need to go.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Anyone else wishing to speak to the amendment?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Lett.
That's right. I actually asked earlier, and I was told that the Local Government Association cost was slightly in excess of $38,000. I'm pleased to find out that it's approximately $40,000. We have an association which represents our interests. Most organisations and businesses, business groups, such as Farmers Federation, business groups, miners, they do. Lithgow Workmen's Club is a member of the Clubs Association, for example, and they have conferences. Delegates elect an executive that represents us as a council to deal with governments and give advice on political, financial, industrial concerns, of the member councils. This report, authorised by the General Manager, is designed to undermine that important governance role of councillors. It should be given that since we are entitled to 3 delegates, we should send 3 at a minimum to the conference. It's our role as a governance. It's a governance issue. We're entitled to 3. We get 3 votes. We should participate in the association to the maximum that we are entitled to. Look at the wording in the commentary. Paragraph 3 deals with 2 councillors and supporting staff. But the next paragraph, we learn there were 3 delegates in bold, just to show how extravagant it would be if we send 3. We're entitled to have 3. We should send 3. Our governance responsibilities require it. If we don't send 3, we should withdraw from the association and save the $40,000. If it's merely a case of cost saving, then of a single delegate, then we should not send the supporting executive staff member.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Yes.
Councillor Goodwin?
Mr. Statement, I thought that last year or the year before that it was a decision of the council voted by you guys as well that we only send 2 out of that delegation, not 3.
That's correct.
I'd like to see a minute of that, Mayor Statham.
You will, Councillor Leslie. I'll make sure.
And if it's proven not to be the case, what do you do then?
We'll bring it up at the next meeting without any doubt. Would you like to keep speaking?
No, Mayor.
Sure.
Mayor Statham.
Councillor Marnie?
I take a very prudent view on spending public money, but I am going to concur with the speakers who are saying this is a very significant and challenging time for local government, it's particularly for small regional councils. And we need to take our full representation down there and make it clear that that challenge is understood. And I wasn't going to talk to these things, but since we've found ourselves in the debate about it, things such as the inclusion of water and sewerage reticulation and treatment infrastructure in the definition of an essential public asset. And for many metropolitan councils, their awareness that regional and quite small rural councils supply water and sewage might come as quite a shock to some councils. The fact of our exposure to natural disasters is significant, given our positioning in the natural environment. The issues around the federal assistance grants and the formulas used and the bias that can sometimes generate towards metropolitan councils needs to be understood.
30% pro rata.
Thank you for that interjection, and I appreciate the fact. Yep, so 30% pro rata. And also the cost shifting elements that persist for regional councils from state governments. These things need to be shone a light on, and they need to be shone a light on with numbers. And I think all rural councils should be turning up with their full delegation to explain the challenges for rural councils that might not be seen in metropolitan Sydney. So whilst it might seem a cost, I'm happy to see this money invested in sending forward 3 effective voices into that conversation. So I won't be supporting the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. If there are no other speakers, I'll put the amendment. All those in favour of Councillor O'Connor's amendment? Show of hands, thank you. There will be a division again. Councillor Bryce, Councillor Goodwin, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor McGee, Councillor Statham. Against? Councillor Coleman, Councillor Ring, Councillor Leslie and Councillor Marnie. I'll put the motion. All those in favour of the motion? Councillor Bryce, Goodwin, O'Connor, McGee, Statham. Against the motion? Councillor Ring, Councillor Coleman, Councillor Leslie and Councillor McGee.
Call a division, please, Mayor.
Councillor Marnie, I beg your pardon.
Call a division.
Absolutely, have a division, thank you. For the motion, Bryce, Goodwin, O'Connor, McGee, Statham. Against the motion, Coleman, Ring, Leslie and Marnie. Carried, thank you. 10.1.2, Central New South Wales Joint Organisation Review. Could I have a mover, please?
Happy to move it.
Happy to second.
Sorry, who moved that? Councillor Marnie, thank you. Who said Councillor Coleman? Councillor Marnie, thank you.
Briefly, just to thank the staff and particularly the Office of the General Manager for the production of a detailed summary of the functions and activities we're involved in with the central, joint organisation, obviously. I don't really have any specific comments on it. The only point I'd just put a question mark at the end is just with the Western Region Academy of Sport. I think it's a modest amount of money to sign up. There is significant benefits for people on on pathways, and particularly on successful pathways in their sport. I'm just conscious that we sometimes get a little bit lost as a population centre over here on the east, and when we're in the other facing direction on the west. I'd just be interested in a report back about some of the local activities that are generated through the Western Region Academy of Sport. But otherwise, I appreciate the report, and it really gives us a good detailed insight to what's occurring at the moment.
Thanks you, Councillor Marnie. Councillor Coleman.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Statham. Look, it does give us good detail in regards to what's happening, and I support the Central New South Wales Joint Organisation. What I found interesting in the report, it explains the value of this organisation has to Lithgow, but there's no cost benefit analysis. Why is that? I just wanted to know that question in regards to that. I mean, you can come back to me if you need to. I don't expect an answer now if you can, but it'd be good if you could.
Councillor Coleman. The General Manager, thank you.
I guess in a strict financial sense, that value could be scored by looking at the cost. So the cost of membership of the JO, which the council resolved to agree to, is $93,000 this year. So it far and away exceeds that, but there's non-financial costs also which haven't been quantified yet. So in terms of productivity, knowledge sharing, innovation, advocacy and the like. So they're less numeric outcomes.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Leslie?
Thank you, Mayor. It was an interesting question from Councillor Coleman, but totally irrelevant, because once you join the Joint Organisation of Councils, you can't leave it. So it really doesn't matter what sort of cost-benefit analysis we get. It makes no difference. We can't change it.
Oh, we changed from West Rock to the Joint Organisation last year.
Yes, that was a regional organisation of councils. We've now joined a joint organisation, and you cannot leave them.
Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor O'Connor?
Right, Council.
Councillor Bryce?
Yeah. Great report. A lot of interesting topics covered. Just to go through what Councillor Marnie about the RAS program. I know as far as hockey's concerned, the local RAS representative is actually a local person. And as far as hockey's concerned, RAS has really good programs for our hockey association and all this young people. And Lockie Sharp was one of them who plays for Australia. We have the likes of Millie Laird. There's quite a few players in Lithgow that have gone through RAS, and I think it's been a great program for our hockey players because I'm involved in hockey, so that I can only speak on hockey.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor O'Connor?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm very happy that we're in this organisation, and I'm wondering if we could use it to use the organisation to get funding for that pipeline from Clarence to Willerwang, because they eventually will be beneficiaries, I should say, to the water. If there's a drought, we got water, they'll all want water. Thank you.
Mr. General Manager might like to reply to that. Thank you.
Yes, I'm happy to do that. And Mr. Trapp might also. Mr. Trapp and our water area is working really closely with the joint organisation. And they've really got some subject experts there. And just last week, the Mayor and I attended a meeting of the Joint Organisations Board. And indeed, they're drafting a document now, and I've seen a draft of that. And once it's completed, I'll forward that to the council, and it'll be used for advocacy. But it does reference loud and clear the potential of what we're calling the Clarence water scheme system, and we'll be using the JO, the Joint Organisation, to advocate, as are the other councils, for a whole range of water security and productive town water initiatives. So I do anticipate, Mayor, that we'll also have the joint organisation along to brief the council at an upcoming information session.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Marnie, right of reply.
Just briefly, just in regard to Councillor Leslie's comment on the Central New South Wales Joint Organisation Hotel California syndrome, I wouldn't mind an answer to whether once we join we can never leave at the next information session if we could.
We must have left them originally to go to West Rock. Mr. General Manager?
No, that was the regional organisation of councils then. It has changed its constitution, it's become a joint organisation. Why don't you ask the General Manager?
Point of order, Mayor Statham. It was requested that this be brought back to an information session, not debated in the council chambers.
And the Mayor gave a wrong answer.
I will rule on the point of order. The point of order will be upheld. We're not here to discuss. Okay, I mentioned West Rock because I was of the unbelieving that Centrock was like the joint organisation, only branded differently. Councillor Marnie would answer tonight. If you'd like to repeat your question, please.
I'm happy either way. It just related to whether, I won't go to any rock songs, but anyway, just whether we can leave if we so choose.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Would you like to take that on notice, or would you like to speak?
And I'm happy for it to be taken on notice. That's fine.
Yeah, we'll take that on notice so that you get the correct reply, Councillor Marnie. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak tonight? Councillor Marnie, right of reply?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Carried, thank you. Councillor Lesley abstained from voting. People and Services Report, Building and Development.
Happy to move.
DA 064/23, Energy Australia, Industrial Development Boreholes and Pit Excavation, Boulder Road. Who moved that, please? Councillor Marnie? Can I have a seconder, thank you? Councillor Marnie, would you like to speak to that, thank you?
Again, briefly, just to say what an important development that this is, and it's part of an offline storage system of power and energy. It's something that I'm really pleased to see happening in our region and will be part of our improved energy security going forward.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm very happy to second what Councillor Mahoney said. This is a very good move for Energy Australia, and these drill holes will give them a good idea of what's under the ground and the costability and the feasibility studies that they've got to do. It's a good project. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Anyone else wishing to speak to that? Councillor Rick?
All we're approving tonight are the boreholes. Once they're done, then they make decisions on their design for their proposed battery. Once that's done, then we can see whether or not it is a good outcome for the community.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Any other speakers, please? Councillor Les?
Yes, I called this in. I did so because I felt it was a large and important project. But I also want to comment about the fact that it's a state significant development, and the boreholes, again, is just a minor aspect to it that the state government is bypassing onto councils in exactly the same way they did with the pumped hydro. It's decision shifting in this case. It's the same thing. It's just appalling. Now, we heard Mr. Smith talking tonight, and he was clearly talking about the pumped hydro and not this battery. But I don't blame him, because he just understand. He sees the same thing, that the whole process is designed to bypass community decision making. It's all designed so that eventually someone else, not the local community, will make these decisions. And I'm sympathetic to it. You know, he's passionate. He wants to speak to it, but again, this is a good proposal, but it should never have come to this council in the first place, because we're not going to be able to make the decision on the substantive bit. So we're just being the bunnies to allow things to go through. I think it's appalling.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Any other speakers? Thank you. Councillor Bryce?
It's an important part of the process of the development of this site, considering it is located over old mining, to need to know what sort of structure and how strong the structure needs to be, the footings and everything else. So it's really important that it is an important step prior to the development of a plan for this project. That's a good one. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Any other speakers? Councillor McGee?
Yes, it would appear that we're damned if we do and damned if we don't. If we weren't asked about these boreholes, there'd be health pay. But we are asked, we're given that consideration, we're told what's going on, what they're for, the trenches as well, it's not just boreholes. You know, if we weren't told, if they were just blazed away, there'd be outrage. Now, we are being informed and it is transparent.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Any other speakers, please? Right of reply, Councillor Marnie.
I think at the end of the day, they do need to bring forward the boreholes. It's part of their process, whether it's us or it goes through the state government. Yes, I understand some of the comments Councillor Leslie has made in regard to us hitting the go button on projects, whether they're good, bad or indifferent, and then not have any participation in the final decision. However, I actually think this is a positive project that will benefit the region, and yes, it is only an early stage that we're endorsing, and I agree with Councillor Ring that that's the case. However, I'm very happy to support this concept, and hopefully the project is a success.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. There will be a division. Thank you. So the division, thank you. Councillor, so first of all, sorry, my fault. All those in favour say aye. Against? That's unanimous, thank you. There'll be a division. All those in favour say aye. All councillors voted for the division. Thank you. Carried. 10.2.1.2 DA 199/22 proposed shed, Lithgow Golf Club. Have a move.
I'll move it.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. A seconder, thank you. Councillor O'Connor. Councillor Bryce.
It's not much to say. It's just a shed for them to store their golf carts. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor O'Connor.
Very little to say. It's go ahead with the shed. It's on council land, so good luck.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Anybody else wishing to speak? If there's no debate, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous, thank you. I do need a division, so all those in favour say aye. Unanimous division, all members of council. Thank you. 10.2.1.3 DA/083/4-23 Lithgow Women's Shed multi-purpose building. Have a mover, thank you.
I'd like to move it, but I also have an additional point to go into it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Could you speak to the addition?
Point?
Thank you, Councillor Ring.
I want a point.
5.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the right page, sorry. Yeah, 5 will do. That the conditions of consent are amended to exclude the requirement for the construction of a car park.
Second.
Could you just repeat that now so the staff...
They've got a copy of it.
Oh, good, thank you. Just repeat it for the councillors, thank you.
that the conditions of consent are amended to exclude the requirement for the construction of a car park.
You're happy with that, Councillor Coleman?
Yep.
Thank you.
This is a very important project to our community. They're on a very tight time frame, 2.5. If they haven't started work by October, this money goes. Our community loses. Now, I didn't find this originally. It's in the main text. It's not talked about. But when you go to the conditions of consent, the work is listed in the landscape plan where it shows the car park. That will become a construction document, and the women's shed will be responsible for constructing it. It is not appropriate. The council is fully aware that they do not have the funding for this, and at the last operations committee, for which we did not have the minutes, Councillor Marnie raised the issue of parking in the showground and the need for a comprehensive plan to address parking. This is not the responsibility of the women's shed to deal with. I'm also aware that they were told, the architect was told they had to have this in or it wouldn't be considered. That isn't appropriate. I also asked for advice on this in an email to one of the executive managers responsible for this last Thursday. I still have not had a response to it, so I'm far from impressed with that. The women's shed is a great asset for this community. Car parking within the showground needs to be dealt with in a rational manner, just as you want to deal with the parks and the playgrounds in a rational manner. What has been proposed, rather underhandedly in this document, is to offset the cost and the issue of trying to find funding onto an independent group. It is not fair or appropriate. We need to look at the showgrounds. We need to look at all the sporting bodies to see what they need moving forward. We may not be able to accommodate every sporting code at the showgrounds. I know they don't all play there now, but quite a few do. Moving forward, where do we park people? And I can tell you now that the last show, people were really annoyed at being parked about parking where they have for years on grass verges. We need to get some decent parking in that area. If we want to have events in the future, other sporting events, not just a grandstand we need to have parking. It is not their responsibility. The women's shed needs to move forward. They need to get this through tonight, and they need to get the first sod of earth turned so we can keep it. It is a shared facility. They made it clear to council from day one that it was a shared facility. There is space in that design for other groups and community people to use, including the sporting bodies. This is a good outcome for the council, and the community if this happens. As for the commentary by management on the financial impacts moving forward, yes, it impacts on our asset values, what we have, depreciation. Simple. Sell $2.5 million worth of assets that we currently have that are not being used so we can generate some revenue and get them off our books. It's not a problem. But by insisting that they build a car park, $800 to $1 million, that's increasing our asset base. Let's have a look at the car parking facilities and needs. These women aren't going to be using this shed when the sporting bodies are playing. They're not going to be taking up parking spots. So I think moving forward, we need this guide. We need the women to give certainty of the night so they can get on with this job so we can have a facility for women in this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Councillor Coleman.
Yes, thanks, Mayor Statham. Look, I'm really pleased that the decision was made to bring this back to council for determination. This development will provide opportunities for other community groups to utilise this space. The area selected is primarily used as an informal car park during peak sporting events, and this will be a challenge for Lithgow City Council going forward. And I attended the last Sports Advisory Committee and it was mentioned there. Look, I am annoyed that the landscaping site plan isn't referenced in the report. It really concerns me. This could have derailed the whole project. I was just wondering, Mayor, were you aware of the site plan? Was that brought to your attention?
I've had a good look today at the what is in here. So yes, I did.
Okay, thanks. So I would like it explained why in the report it wasn't referenced, because that gravely concerns me and it did annoy me.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. The General Manager would like to speak to that. Thank you.
Oh, look, I'm happy for Mr Trapp to speak to it also, but when the people spoke, it made me wonder what the situation was. So I looked at the assessment report, which is attached to the council report, and it acknowledges that the applicant indicated there was capacity for 59 spaces, I think it was. The applicant has demonstrated 59 spaces available on the site. This is satisfactory against the DCP. Then the landscaping plan, which is the applicant's landscaping plan, indicates those spaces. So I'll provide, Mr Trapp will provide an advice tomorrow, but it seems that the proponent has indicated that there's a capacity to provide the parking on the site, and it's a feature of their application.
With respect, Mr Butler, I've seen correspondence.
Excuse me, Councillor Ring, it's not your turn to talk now at the
Fine.
moment.
Okay.
Thank you. Could Mr Butler, would you finish what you were saying?
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, I think I have. It hasn't been brought to my attention. I know the council's planners have been working really tirelessly to bring this application here and to resolve through all of the issues, be they heritage, on-site detention and parking. So a lot of time has been spent on parking and dealing with the community groups applicant, which is the architect or builder, as I understand. So there's been significant toing and froing as I've been briefed. I haven't been right down in the detail. If I'm missing anything, I'll certainly correct that by way of memorandum to all councillors. It seems to me that the applicant's plan indicates capacity to park those 59 cars on the site, and that's all included in the report.
Thank you, Mr General Manager. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor McGee?
Yeah, I think it's fantastic that it's all getting there finally. This has been a long road. I can't see anything sinister in what's obviously a misunderstanding regarding the car park. The amount of work that council staff have put into getting this to where it is now, along with the women's shed and everyone involved, is just phenomenal. And you know, we've been here all the time and hearing of problems, and that's why we brought it to council for the final decisions, to make it faster and to make sure that it did get through on time. I can't see that council staff would do something as underhanded as spend half of the budget on a car park. So I just can't see it. So I'm glad that it's all sorted. I support the amendment, that it spells it out that there is no car park to be constructed. So it just clarifies it beautifully.
Just to make sure everyone's on the same page, it wasn't an amendment, it was just a number 5. So Councillor Coleman did accept that. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Bryce?
This will be a significant project for that area. I'm glad to see it's coming to a start, I suppose, of the building. We have spoken before at council meetings and at all other sorts of committee meetings about a parking study for that whole precinct, and we need to push ahead with that to make it fully understand how much parking we have down there, bring in all the sporting bodies that use the grounds, all the stakeholders, including now the women's shed, the basketball, whatever, everyone in, so that we can understand what parking is required and what parking is available at that precinct. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor O'Connor?
Yes, this is a good project, but I'll go back to the corner of Colebrook Street. There's a great big section of land there that council owns, I believe. And I've said before that we should put a car park there. There's now a bridge to walk across there, and it would be perfect for all concerned. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Anyone else wishing to speak? Right of reply,
Yes, please.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you. A couple of things. I note that there were no known written submissions were received during the notification period. However, one of my concerns with the process, we've got a series of community groups who come to provide either services or, in this case, some infrastructure through very strong and good motivational pathways, have found themselves not at war with each other, but certainly at very different points with each other. A component, and I'm not speaking on behalf of the senior club, I have no role in the junior club, but I'm in receipt of a submission that was put into the council on 2 different occasions, and they speak to which I know to be a fact, that you can end up with up to 1,000 people there during major events. Now, one of the concerns was the loss of car parking space. I felt we needed to be better at bringing those stakeholder groups together for an informed conversation. Both parties were almost left in a position where it was up to them to step across the breach and talk to each other, and I think we should have led that conversation. I have no criticism of either party for what they've tried to do, but there was a response which basically said that this area wasn't used for car parking. Anyone that's been there on a Saturday morning, even for a mid-range sporting day, that entire space is occupied with cars. I appreciate that the women's shed and the group surrounding that have tried very hard to think of any possible ways to alleviate the incursion into that space. I know, looking at the landscaping plan, we've taken the building back as hard against the fence line as is possible, which allows for the space in front to be maximised for parking. It's, again, I might be on a bit of a theme tonight, but it's a reflection of not us as an organisation not having the planning in place, particularly around, again, our asset management planning for open space, which tells us that what we need in the southeast corner is a community building, and we need to go and find the funds for it. What we did was the Women's Shed group have found the funds, and then we've tried to find a home for them. And we've got a best fit scenario, which will never completely satisfy all parties. But it's demonstrated the importance of good forward planning and good asset management planning to hopefully see that we don't arrive at this situation again. I think the asset is very valuable, and we're very fortunate to the women behind me who have gone out and secured that $2 million. It will provide a significant public asset for us.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Any other speakers? Councillor Leslie?
Yes, this will be a great building and will serve a great need in the community. The recommendation point 5, the conditions of consent are amended to exclude the requirement for the construction of a car park, relieves any ambiguity on it. I think that's essential. And it was not an accident that the Women's Shed DA was asked to come back to council for a decision. I think we were right to do that.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Right of reply, Councillor Ring.
Start with Councillor Marnie. He's right. There's a lack of planning that's been done over the decades in this council. The asset management is not up to speed. It should be. It shouldn't be perfect, but it's not even close. And it is having impact on how we operate as a council moving forward. It impacts on our financial long-term position, not knowing what the value of our assets are, not knowing what their maintenance costs are moving forward. It's a major burden on this council. As for the calling back in of this, getting this here, Councillor Leslie's right. It was appropriate to be called back in. As for Mr Butler's comments about the proponent, sorry, I do not accept that the project manager agreed to construct a $1 million car park with a $2.2 million budget and a $2.2 million project. Does not sit well with me. Nor am I happy, as I said, about requesting information from the appropriate director 5 days later, still no advice. Mr Butler made it very clear in writing when I first started that councillors could still go to the appropriate directors. Mr Butler, as the General Manager, is legally required to provide councillors with information within a reasonable period of time to do their duty. It's very hard to make a decision if you can't get information. I'm very glad people agree with this and that we're moving this out. We remove the ambiguity, but I'm far from happy with this process.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous. There is a division. All those in favour say aye for the division. Any against? No. All councillors voted for the division. Thank you. Carried. 10.3, infrastructure services. The ladies from the Women's Shed, congratulations, and thank you for bearing with us for tonight. And, you feel free to stay, but you're able to leave the building now if you wish to. Thank you. Best wishes. Thank you. It will be. Thank you. 10.3, infrastructure services report, storm recovery related works. Could I have somebody please move this? Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Have a seconder, Councillor Bryce. Councillor O'Connor.
Yes, a report about all the works that had to be done because of the floods and everything else, and I'm glad to see the down at Tank Street Bridge, all that work has been done to save that sewer line, because that was ready to blow because it was exposed for 6 to 12 months. The rest of it, hopefully it's all going to stand up down the track. That's all I got to say. I go with the recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Councillor Bright.
The report talks for itself, all the work that's been done, that was approved to be done on Farmers Creek, the sewer main down at Tank Street, Cox's River Road, the rehab of 5.9 kilometres of road, including new ceiling and adjacent infrastructures, will reduce the maintenance and increase the life of the road. This is all work that was affected by the large rain events that we had. Thank you.
I'd like to move an amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. An amendment. Councillor Ring, your amendment?
I have it. The amendment is that item, it's removing the current motion, that item 10.3.11 is deferred until a report is brought back to council addressing the following issues. A, the legal basis supporting the concept of a mayoral delegation. B, detailed justification for undertaking roadworks without first doing a detailed geotechnical report.
Could I have a seconder? Thank you.
I'll second that.
Councillor Leslie. Councillor Leslie, would you like to speak to that?
I'll wait for the mover to speak to it.
Thank you. Councillor, sorry, yes, I beg your pardon. Councillor Ring, thank you.
The report states very clearly that the Mayor approved a budget of $440,000. Now, the Mayor doesn't have a financial delegation. I'm not aware of any council resolution. I went through the council meetings for this term of this council. There's no council resolution voting a delegated amount of funding to the Mayor. So I want to know why we have a report saying that the Mayor approved $440,000. And I want it based on law. Second, we spent a significant amount of money on this road. I was at a meeting on Saturday where the General Manager made it very clear to community members we need to do better on our roadworks and need to do better. Well, I'm sorry, 10 weeks to wait to get a geotechnical report for what's turning out to be a major project is not a long time. Unless that road was in such poor condition that someone could have died, it was impassable, we should have had a geotech report done and fully scoped out the work and done the specifications properly the first time. Yes, you can allow for works to be done above and beyond because you'll have a rate of fees for works, But seriously, let's do the geotechnical work first, and I appreciate it if the staff would actually listen to the debate rather than having a private conversation. Thank you, Mayor.
Excuse me, I wasn't
A
speaking.
point of order.
I wasn't speaking.
No, you weren't, but the Mayor and the Acting Director were. Apologies. The General Manager and the Acting Director were.
Oh, I didn't even hear them speak.
No.
I apologise
So,
for that.
no, that's
on their
fine,
behalf.
but I think they should be listening to the conversation. Do the job properly the first time. This is not a case of doing the job properly. Do your geotechnical report properly the first time, Mr. Butler. It's simple.
Thank you for your extensive report, Councillor Ring. Councillor Leslie, would you like to speak to that?
Thank you, Mayor. The Mayor does not have the authority to approve a $400,000 budget. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe the General Manager has the authority either. Is that why it was dumped on the Mayor? I'll be voting against this recommendation because I do not wish to be held financially responsible for any civil case coming against councillors because they failed in their fiduciary responsibilities. The role and responsibility of the Mayor do not cover this action. All I can see in the Local Government Act on the role of the Mayor is point D of a series of numbers, to exercise in cases of necessity the policy-making functions of the governing body of the council between meetings of the council. This is not a policy-making function and there was no necessity. But the issue is much deeper than that. This recommendation is illegal because either the Mayor, when she approved this budget and tender exemption, was not properly briefed and therefore would have acted irresponsibly in the exercise of her duties, or
Point of order. Point of order.
Or she was unlawfully briefed.
Point of order, Councillor Price.
That the Councillor Leslie doesn't know what you know and what you were told.
Yes, exactly. You're quite right. Which is why we got to the
name and I upheld the point of order, so do not mention that again. Thank
Motion
you.
of dissent.
All those in favour
Motion
of the
of
point of order?
dissent.
Do you have a second to Councillor Ring?
I don't need one.
What's your motion of dissent, Councillor?
My motion of dissent relates to the point of order. It is inappropriate for you to stop a councillor trying to find out information. He was saying that he doesn't know what's been said. It wasn't a put down on you. It wasn't a criticism. He doesn't know what you have been told, or if you've been told anything. I don't think your point of order is appropriate, unless there's something to hide.
It wasn't my point of order, and I will uphold the point of order for the insinuations that Councillor Leslie has derived upon the
It goes to a vote, councillor, as a motion of dissent.
Yes, so I'll put the motion of dissent. I'll put the vote. All those for the
Question before we do.
No, it's not.
Thank you. That's all I'm asking.
little boy's learning.
Councillor Ring's motion of dissent against the Mayor. It certainly was against the Mayor. I'll rule on that. Thank you, Councillor Ring. You are not the Mayor. All those against the motion? The dissent motion of Councillor Ring has failed to be achievable. Any other speakers?
I haven't finished.
Yes, continue.
Thank you. Or she was unlawfully briefed in direct conflict with the General Manager's own interpretation of the law. With an item as large as $400,000.
Could the staff not hold discussions while we are in debate, please?
We need to have legal advice, as the General Manager was not here when that was signed.
It's all right.
Then, in all fairness,
it's all right,
suspend the meeting.
Councillor, it's all right. It's all right. Seriously. With an item as large as $400,000, the Mayor would have to be fully briefed on the issues, the implications, ongoing concerns and likely scenarios involved. The Mayor would need to be able to question the information put forward and question those who prepared the brief. In other words, the Mayor would need to be able to attend a meeting of the Council's executive, Council's senior staff. But according to the General Manager, such attendance would be unlawful. For the June meeting, I moved the following: that the Mayor of Lithgow City Council have the power to call meetings of Lithgow City Council's executive leadership team to attend any such meetings regardless of who called the meeting. A few qualifying clauses,
Excuse
which
me,
I can read if I wish.
Excuse me,
This
Councillor
motion
Leslie,
was
this is
deemed
your third
unlawful by
warning.
the General Manager
Councillor
and
Leslie,
excluded from the
listen here,
council
rude
June
councillor.
council meeting.
Councillor
He
Bryce, I'm
advised
sorry,
me
I
that he
apologise for
consulted
Councillor
with
Leslie.
the office of...
Leslie.
Excuse me.
Point of
Councillor-
order. Before we go any further down that pathway, let's all just stay in our seats.
Can we have an adjournment, please, for 15 minutes? Thank you. Unanimous, thank you. Still dealing with the amendment. Councillor Leslie, would you like to continue speaking?
I've had my 5 minutes. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Any other people wishing to speak?
I wish to.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman.
I just want to pick up on something that Councillor Bryce said in the point of order. She said they don't know what you were told. So I'm giving you the opportunity, Mayor. Did you sign anything before you were briefed? Were you briefed? Tell us what you were told or weren't told.
Oh, I have no problem to do that. Absolutely no problem. Pardon? I'll ask the General Manager to go through the whole brief. Thank you.
Oh, from you first, please. The question is to you.
Oh, I've got nothing to hide.
I'm not suggesting that you do. I'm giving you the opportunity. I would like to know what you were told for the benefit of the council. Please do so.
And I would like everyone to know, so I'm asking the General Manager to translate what I was given. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and I'm very pleased to speak to this matter because there's certainly some strong accusations being made here in strong language, and I'm very happy to put on the record the facts. Mr. Gurney actually has furnished me with the memorandum. The standard practice is that the Mayor would not take decisions. Out of the many decisions she does take, she would take them by way of a written recommendation. So the situation for the councillors and for those in the audience and viewing the video is that this council has had 7 disaster declarations. I know certainly that we've spent at least $13 million and we have another $25 million worth of work to do. The disasters have been coming at us again and again and again. And council's officers have been working really tirelessly to deal with those. So if I deal with the first situation, the Farmers Creek matter, where the Mayor was called upon by the administration, it was recommended that she exercise an authority that she has under the Local Government Act to take decisions in between meetings. She was furnished with a memorandum on the 3rd of August, which outlined the full facts. And the facts were that Farmers Creek had been inundated and severe scouring and undermined a significant main into the Lithgow sewage treatment plant. That was hanging out exposed, and had it failed or collapsed, there would have been catastrophic pollution, including Farmers Creek, Lake Lyell and beyond. The council staff had to move quickly. They're authorised to move quickly in disaster recoveries by way of the government funding and the government oversight, and they moved quickly to reinstate support to that main. They relied upon a contractor who had the expertise of working in Farmers Creek, and that contractor was re-engaged and did move swiftly to protect that pipe. And the memorandum advises that it's appropriate and necessary for the Mayor to exercise the power that she has under Section 226 of the Act to exercise, in the case of necessity, the policy-making functions of the council between meetings. So clearly, in my view, a council votes a budget. That is a policy decision where to allocate that money for the year. When a circumstance arises between meetings, such as the disaster I've described, Section 226 goes very much to give the authority to the Mayor, in your stead, to take a decision and allow emergencies to be dealt with rapidly. And then after the event, the administration, of course, reports that to council, as they're doing tonight. I want to just deal, if I can, Mayor, also with the other criticism of the bureaucracy, the administration, that we should have done better down in the Cox's River Road. We should have paused and done geotech analysis. Well, again, $13 million worth of work at least we've already done, 25 ahead of us, a very small workforce, working tirelessly across a 4,100 square kilometre, 900 kilometre lineal road network to repair these roads and make them safe again. We would have loved to have paused and done a detailed geotech analysis, but we didn't. We put the contractors in there to repair it quickly. We checked with Transport New South Wales, who were the funding body for that project. They critically oversight all funding, ensure that it is eligible, and there is no better validation for the robustness of the work and the validity of the cost than Transport New South Wales endorsing that additional $1.5 million. So I'm very pleased to have been able to put that on the public record, because I think the administration has conducted themselves most appropriately in dealing with these matters.
Thank you, Mr General Manager. Any other people wishing to speak? Councillor Coleman?
Thank you to Mr Butler. No, Mayor, could you please explain? So you had a memo come to you? Is that how it worked? Is that what, so go through that. So a memo came to you?
It's very clearly stated, Section 226 of the Art empowers the Mayor to exercise, in the case of a necessity, the policy-making functions of the Council between meetings. So if you check all your dates, make sure you have a good look at it. You'll find it's all above board, transparent and honest. So let's move on. And I could ask Councillor Leslie to apologise like most people would want, but I'm not going to do that. We need to move on with tonight's council meeting. Are there any other speakers? Thank you. Before I put the amendment. I'll put the amendment then. Councillor
Ring want to write it.
right of reply if Councillor Ring would like.
That's fine, Mayor, if there is information there. However, I am still concerned, and I don't care if the department has provided additional funding for the works. Commitment was given by the General Manager at a public meeting that we will do our works better. And if this council cannot cope with the work, either get additional staff on, and I know it's very difficult, or slow down the works program. Be honest about it. But let's not rush into doing works because there's money there. Let's do the works properly the first time. That's it. Let's put it to a vote.
Yeah, I agree with that, Councillor Ring. Let's put it to a vote. So Councillor Ring's amendment, all those in favour of Councillor Ring's amendment? Councillor Leslie, Councillor Ring and Councillor Coleman against?
No, Councillor Coleman didn't vote.
Sorry?
Sorry, I just want to read it quickly because
yes,
we've had
please
a break
read
there
it.
for 15 minutes.
Right. All those in favour, please, of Councillor Ring's amendment? Councillor Leslie, Councillor Ring and Councillor Marnie. All those against Councillor Ring's amendment? Councillor Marnie?
No.
Sorry, Councillor Bryce, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor Goodwin, Councillor McGee, Councillor Statham, Councillor Coleman. You're not voting or you're voting? I don't know whether that's your hand up or how. Hand up. So, right. So the motion becomes.
The amendment's lost.
Sorry, the amendment's lost. The amendment now becomes the motion.
No, we return to the original motion.
Sorry, we'll return to the original motion. That's correct. Right. Any further discussion on this? Thank you.
Just
Right a reply to.
no, just briefly.
Councillor Marnie.
I do want to acknowledge the important work that was done in Farmers Creek, and accept the significant risk that was attached to it. So I don't want to see that go undealt with during the discussion. I do understand the concerns raised, and I'm still not completely convinced that the difference between budget limits and policy making, I'm not sure. There is an interpretation that they're one of the same. I'm not completely convinced about that. Anyway, I'll leave it at that.
Councillor O'Connor, right of reply. Oh, sorry, Councillor.
Sorry, after Councillor Marnie spoke, I thought I'd speak as well. We're here to endorse the mayoral's approval for urgent sewer works after an emergency. That's what we were doing. It was after an emergency. And the extra funding for the Cox's River Road. A month ago or so, I went down to speak, down to the site and spoke with Mr. Gracie and the work that's been done down at Cox's River Road, and it was way above standard. He showed me parts of the road that he had built up and areas that were very challenging. And I'm very glad this is completed to the standard it has been, and I'm sure that the residents are happy with this road as well. If we had the funding, it would be great to see other roads completed to this standard down there, even if the table drains of either side of the road are cleared. So that's why I support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Are there any other speakers? Councillor McGee?
Yes, I'd just like to thank the General Manager for his clarification of the whole thing. It's a lot clearer now, and I do thank him for that.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Councillor O'Connor, right of reply.
No, I think there's enough being said on the issue.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour of the motion? Against? Councillor Leslie, Councillor Coleman, Councillor Ring. Carried. Thank you. I'll call the division then, Councillor. I'll call the division, Councillor Leslie. All those in favour of the motion, thank you. The division. Councillor Bryce, Councillor Goodwin, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor Marnie, Councillor McGee, Councillor Statham. Against? Councillor Leslie, Ring and Coleman. Thank you. The matter was carried. 10.3.2 South Bowen Fells Link Road, tender acceptance. Could I have a mover, please?
I'll move this.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Have a seconder, thank you. Councillor O'Connor. Councillor Bryce.
There's not much to be said about this. They went through a tender process. There was geotechnical holes done on this job to ascertain the road. We got an email late about this. And it went through a full tender process, open and transparent, so no reason to not go with the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor O'Connor.
Yes, originally I was going to not going to support this until I found out that there was a geotech report done, which covers everything.
And I'll thank Mrs. Carney, Leanne, for her wonderful work late today on that question that you posed to the staff member. Councillor O'Connor. Anybody else wishing to speak?
Yes, Mayor.
Just a question, if I may. Could I ask why there was no attachment actually just showing the road, you know, where it was? I think it would be very valuable information for the public.
Anybody wishing to speak?
Mr. Carney saying that she'll provide that tomorrow. I think the report describes the road, but yes, you're right, it might be assisted by having a locality plan.
I'd like to move an amendment
Councillor Ring, your amendment.
that this item is deferred until next meeting, where councillors are to be provided with a detailed report that allows them to exercise their governance role in an informed manner. Point 2, that a report summarising all road contracts issued during the past 2 years is tabled as part of that report.
Do you have a second to Councillor Ring?
I'll second that. It gives us an opportunity to get a map among other things.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Would you like to speak to that, Councillor Ring?
Yes, I would. From a governance perspective, there's not enough information in front of me to make an informed decision. Making an informed decision is very important. It's very critical for councillors in exercising their role to be 100% certain they're getting value for money in expending funds. Previously, on the past council, obviously it's changed, these items would have been dealt with in closed council, where frank and open discussion could have been had, where we were given more detailed reports by the staff with justification for the reasons. Now, it says in this report there were 2 non-conforming tenders. I don't know why they were non-conforming. Was it sufficient to move them out? What is the difference between the first and the second in terms of pricing? Is it sufficient? It could be a $10 difference for all I know. There is not enough information for me here to make an informed decision. and our fiduciary responsibilities are very important. And I would like to see all tenders presented in a closed council where we have adequate information to make an informed decision.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Who seconded that? Councillor Leslie, thank you.
I'll just reserve my right to speak.
Thank you, no worries. Any other speakers, please? Councillor Leslie, if you're not going to speak, I'll ask Councillor Ring for right of reply.
Yes.
Councillor O'Connor.
In this instance, while a lot of what Councillor Ring is saying is correct, but in this instance, there's a contractor. He's already ready to quite possibly start the job with his staff, and he's the innocent party on this if we defer it. And it could actually cost somebody that's got totally innocent maybe a lot of money, or who knows. So that's the only reason I'm against this, is because he's a local contractor and he's being awarded.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. I think the General Manager should speak to this so that he can make you more aware of some facts that you've been speaking about. Thank you. Mr General Manager.
Councillor Ring is correct. Historically, before my role here, many of these matters were dealt with within closed session of council. I don't believe that to be appropriate, and in fact I'd find it inconsistent with the Local Government Act, which by and large extremely limits those matters which should be dealt with in open council, especially when you're allocating public funds and taking decisions. The Act very much requires that these matters come out into open council. That has been the practice that quite shamelessly I've brought into this council. Matters of commercial confidence can be dealt with by way of a confidential memorandum to the council, but I believe that this report is best and contemporary practice. These decisions should be taken in the public, and the report speaks to all of the, I believe, the relevant criteria that the council, the knowledge that the council should have in order to enable it to take a decision. It talks about the process, the exhibition, the criteria by which the tender was judged. I think it speaks about the panel that's formed, and council is aware that we typically have an experienced purchasing officer and others, subject experts that participate on the panel, and the scores are also indicated there, so the council gets a clear impression of the differentiation between the three successful tenderers. In terms of the non-conforming tenderers, yes, it's always a matter of how far we go in terms of putting information to the council, which is by and large operational. But I say again, I think this is a very good report with all of the information the council requires to make a decision.
Thank you, Mr General Manager. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor McGee and Councillor Martin. Councillor McGee, I think, was...
Yes, I'd just like to thank the General Manager for his clarification there, and also, the clarification that the geotech survey was completed on this. So once again, that's what we were really after before was that, thoroughness and getting things right the first time. And when things are ready to roll, I think that, we have to concentrate and look at the future and make sure that we do get better with our roads, especially places like Boner's Lane. We've got good examples and bad examples, but I think holding things up right now is not the answer when we've got things ready to go.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Councillor Marnie.
Given that there's concern over, and it's been raised over two items about our procurement process and our governance role, can I request that we have an information session on this where we can address those concerns in it? Listening carefully to Councillor O'Connor, we got an item in front of us. I'd be reluctant to defer it. However, I think the concerns are legitimate, what are being raised, whether they're founded or not. I I don't sit too far apart from where Councillor Ring's coming from, so I just don't know that holding this particular item up tonight will be of benefit. But I do want some clarification about the point that was raised in the previous item, as well as our role in endorsing these tenders. And given that there's an enormous amount of money being spent in the system, I think we have to pay even closer attention to our role and our responsibilities as councillors. If we're found that we're actually perceiving that our role is greater than we would like it to be, so be it. That'll come forward in that session, but I'd personally like a bit of clarification around this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Any other speakers?
Just a question.
Yes, Councillor Leslie?
No, sorry, I withdraw that.
Councillor Ring, right of reply, thank you.
No intention to hold someone up, and I'll keep the amendment as it is. I do think we do need to have a discussion. I'll also be seeking information and clarification on what's operational and what's policy. It's very easy to throw up something's operational, but as councillors, we can review any operational processes of this council. And I think we need to be exercising our governance role at a much higher level than what this council has been doing. That's it.
Councillor Ring, I'll put the amendment, please. Councillor Ring's amendment. All those people in favour of Councillor Ring's amendment. Councillor Coleman, Councillor Ring and Councillor Leslie, all those so against? Thank you. Councillor McGee, Councillor Marnie, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor Goodwin, Councillor Bryce and Councillor Statham. So the amendment now has been lost and we move to the motion. So the amendment becomes the motion now. All those... The original motion, thank you. Go to the original motion. So we have... Yes, anybody wishing to speak on the original motion? Councillor Bryce, right of reply? No? I'll put the original motion. All those in favour say aye. You were just against it. Right, okay. Yes, yes, right. Voting against the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous, thank you. Carried. .3.3 Glen Davis Road Bridge Replacements Program Variations.
Happy to move it.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Have a seconder, thank you. Councillor Goodwin, thank you. Councillor Ring, thank you.
Excuse me, it was clear at the public meeting at Glen Alice that this is an issue for the residents, and I'm very glad that this is being dealt with.
Councillor Goodwin.
Thanks, Mayor Statham. It's always good to see projects, once completed, come in under budget. Even though it's fully funded, it allows an extension of some works, improving the road, safety and travel into the Glen Alice and Glen Davis Valley.
The mover of this motion, which was Councillor Ring, could you please just reference the industries, central industries? It was missed in the commentary. Yes, the General Manager would like to comment on that. Thank you.
Yes, Mayor. I'm just suggesting, I think it's an oversight not to have the successful contractor specifically named in the recommendation. That will be what people dominantly look at in the minutes in time to go by. So it'd just be appropriate in point 2 where it says to allow the contractor Central Industries to undertake.
Yes.
I have no problem with that being changed. That's appropriate.
You're okay with that?
Yeah, I'm
Councillor
okay
Ring?
with it. That's fine.
All right, thank you. That's great. Anybody else wishing to speak?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to draw the Council's attention to two phrases, both on page 37. As per Council's purchasing and contracting standard working procedure, when contract variations exceed 250,000, approval is required from Council. And then in policy implications, when one variation exceeds 250,000, resolution is sought from Council before proceeding.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor O'Connor.
Yes, we drove over those bridges on Saturday, and all I can say is they're a credit to the contractor and the staff that done them. They're beautiful.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Any other people wishing to speak? Right of reply, Councillor Ring. There's no other speakers?
No, Mayor, but I would ask if the meeting is being screened. I just had a message from someone saying it's not up. Is it actually up at the moment? It is up? Okay. All right, no, thank you. No, I've got nothing to add.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous, thank you. Unanimous, thank you. Carried. 10.4, Finance and Assets Reports. ALGWA Executive Appointment, Councillor Coleman requesting support.
Move with an amendment.
So you're moving the original motion with an amendment?
Well, I'm. This is the original motion. This is, yeah, the recommendation is there. It's not a motion at this point. I'd like to delete. Sorry. I would like to delete item 2 and replace it that the allocation for professional development be increased by $3,000 to permit Councillor Coleman to attend and participate in ALGA meetings.
Can Councillor Ring please, he requires a seconder.
Yeah, happy to
Councillor
second.
Marnie?
Look, it's highly unlikely that the full amount of the allocation to councillors will be spent, which is unfortunate. Because professional development is key to councillors improving their skills and their roles and serving the community. Councillor Coleman has been on this before. I spoke to Councillor Coleman earlier today about this. She's now in the Treasurer's role. That's giving her a lot of financial experience she hasn't hitherto had. And she's being trained in the financial areas. This will give her a greater understanding, ultimately, of council finances. I think it's good that there's a representative from council on this, and I did support Councillor Coleman in the previous council in relation to this. Now, there'll probably be surpluses in the future on this. That's good. That'll help the bottom line. But if other councillors wish to pursue professional development, be it either courses or lectures or going to conferences, they should have the opportunity. That's it.
I don't really call this professional development, Councillor Ring. I don't know that it qualifies.
With all respect, I do.
Okay, no worries. Right, Councillor Marnie.
Just firstly, again, to congratulate Deputy Mayor Coleman. I think it's an important organisation that Councillor Coleman is part of. There's a lot of conversation about how we bring more women into politics and bring more women into local government particularly. I know Councillor Coleman's worked very hard in her roles on the ALGA, the Australian Local Government Women's Association. I agree also with the statements Councillor Ring's making. Again, I'm, like other councillors, very prudent about how we spend our money, but I do support professional development. I do support involvement in organisations that are working to the betterment of particularly local government. So I'm happy to support Councillor Ring's motion.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor McGee?
Yes, I'm just a bit disenchanted with the amendment or the change of the dot point. I think we need to assess this because, to use Councillor Coleman's own words, you know, a cost-benefit analysis. Now, she has been on this ALGA, which I think is a very worthwhile body and everything like that. However, in 18 months that I've now been on council, I think that there should be some tangible benefit to our LGA from this if we're just going to put 1/3 of the councillor's allocation towards that one sort of exercise. You know, like it's a job. It's not team building. I'd like to see how this benefits us, because in 18 months I haven't heard of anything directly benefiting the LGA.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor Bryce.
And I have nothing against this organisation, but it says here the website describes the organisation. It seeks to strengthen networking, mentoring and innovative opportunities that encourage and support women in local government. I don't think I've felt any of that since I've been here. So, again, I'd like a report how this is done and how it would benefit the local council, local area.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Anyone else wishing to speak?
I'd like to add an additional point if I could.
Excuse me, Councillor Goodwin, you were ready to speak. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor Statham. Out of the $3,000 allocated to Councillor Coleman, I'd like to just ask a couple of questions. What's the breakdown of the travel expenses and the accommodation in the past? It appears that Councillor Coleman is using 1/3 of all allocated councillor expenses to go to these meetings that are not part of her public office as a councillor. I've supported Councillor Coleman in the past years attending those meetings, and I probably will support her again. But what is the meeting schedule? How many can she attend via Zoom? We ask everyone to pull in the purse strings. I think it would be appropriate to ask councillors to do the same, considering it's not a council sanctioned committee she's attending, but we're funding.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Any other speakers? Thank you. Councillor O'Connor.
Yes, I'm against any funding for any of this. It might be an important organisation, but I don't see any benefit. Thanks.
Excuse me, no discussion outside the meeting.
If I could please speak, Councillor
Yes, Councillor
Statham.
Coleman.
This organisation is no different than being a delegate to the Country Mayors Association. And as for a benefit, the benefit to this council is the networking opportunities and the people that I know. At the National Assembly, I made sure in Canberra that I introduced our mayor and the general manager to as many people that I knew to the point of numerous council delegates who are a part of ALGA and some of the staff of Local Government New South Wales. I did my best to ensure that everybody knew who the Lithgow Mayor was and the General Manager, because I know so many people through this organisation.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Any other speakers, please? Right of reply, Councillor Ring.
Before that, I'd just like, if I could, just to add an additional point. Point 3, that Councillor Coleman brings back regular reports to council meetings on the work of ALGA. If Councillor Marnie's happy to support that.
Yes, more than happy to support that, and I'm sure Councillor Coleman would be very happy to draw on the attention of the other councillors in regard to these matters.
In
Thank
fact,
you, Councillor Marnie.
In fact, I think any councillor going to a conference or workshop should bring back a report to council and table it in a council meeting so that everyone gets the benefit. In terms of, if I may do the right of reply, professional development comes in a lot of forms: reading a book, going to a formal training course, participating in groups such as ALGA, Mayoral, the country mayors, going to the conferences for the state and federal level. It's all about professional development. This is not about taking a third of the budget, this is about adding some additional funds. And yes, Councillor Coleman will look at, I believe, only attending those meetings that she does have to, and using Zoom where she can. And honestly, as I said, I don't think this council will expend all this money. I don't think they ever have in the past, which is rather unfortunate, because the money is there for us to learn. And there's no one in this room as a councillor who knows it all. He's got the skills for everything, and we should be pursuing as much training and as much development as we can. It is critical to our role.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. I'll put Councillor Ring's additional points as an amendment. All those in favour of Councillor Ring's additional points? Against? Councillor O'Connor? Yes, the seconder did agree to that. So the original motion now?
No, it's just passed.
Oh, all right, thank you. Carried, thank you. .4.2, amendment to right of way benefiting council land. Could I have a mover, thank you?
I'll move that, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Councillor O'Connor.
Yep, I think council should go with the recommendation. It's good for the business down there. And it's good business too. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Councillor Goodwin.
No, I don't need to say anything, Mayor.
Is there any debate on this? Councillor Ring?
No, I'd just like to support and agree with Councillor O'Connor. It's good business. And as a council, we should be doing all we can to support our businesses. This does not impact on anyone adversely. We should just go with it.
Any other speakers? If there's no dissent, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Carried. Thank you. Policies and Government 10.5.1 Review of Policy 8.4 Debt Recovery.
Happy to move.
Happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Thank you, Councillor Ring. Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor Statham. At the Glen Atlas community meeting on Saturday, a resident asked the question, what happens if we don't pay our rates? This policy, the debt recovery policy 8.4, makes it pretty clear. It states that council will commence legal action with the issue and service of a statement of claim against any ratepayer who is not a pensioner with at least 2 quarterly instalments unpaid. This is a pretty clear response and a direct answer to that question asked on Saturday. So, I'm glad we're debating this because residents need to understand what happens if they do not pay their rates. I'm not laying judgment here, but perhaps we need to ensure that when that question is asked, that we have this policy on hand.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Ring.
This policy was modified as a consequence of the last Finance Committee, and I argued extensively about it. The previous policy or version had a limit of $500 before we started taking action. Now, as the staff rightly said, I mean, under $1,000, you don't commence legal proceedings because the cost of legal proceedings is quite extensive. But I do believe the policy should reflect our intent. There should not be ambiguity. The policy now is clear. 2 quarterly payments, then council can take action if they're missed. And I think that's quite reasonable.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Any other speakers, please? If there's no other speakers and no dissent, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Carried. Unanimous. Thank you. 10.5.2 Public Interest Disclosure Policy.
Happy to move.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Have a seconder, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor Ring, would you like to speak to that?
Look, this is a pro forma policy from the government. The government's updating the legislation for protected information disclosures or public information disclosures. I think it's a very important document. I think we should support it.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Councillor Bryce? Anybody else wishing to speak? I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Carried. Carried. Thank you. Unanimously. 11.1 Seven Valleys Tourism Committee Minutes, the 31st of July 2023. Thank you, Councillor Bryce.
Happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Bryce?
Again, this is a pretty upbeat committee meeting with lots of great things happening. Nothing else to add. It was all in the meeting minutes. Some really good things are happening in our area.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor Coleman?
Yes, thanks, Mayor Statham. In the minutes, it states a brief update on the Transport for New South Wales on the highway entrance to Lithgow project was given by the Mayor. It doesn't go into detail. I would like to know the details surrounding this project, please. It sounds exciting.
We'll provide information to you, Councillor Coleman, with pleasure. Thank you. Walls councillors. Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor Marnie?
Question. I heard indirectly, as far as the progress of the farmers market concept, is there a delay in that commencing in September?
Councillor Bryce, would you have any information that would be...
No, I'm not going for the staff, please. Thank you.
I'll have to take that on notice unless the council would like to hear. I think Councillor Bryce might have more information.
I'll go to Councillor Bryce on that.
Councillor Bryce?
I think there's an indefinite hold on it at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Anyone else wishing to speak? If there's nobody else wishing to speak, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against? Unanimous, thank you. 11.2, Crime Prevention Committee Minutes, the 7th of August 2023.
Happy to move.
A seconder, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Coleman?
I don't wish to speak to it. The minutes are pretty clear.
Councillor Leslie? I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against? Unanimous, thank you. 28th of the 8th, 2023 Finance Committee meeting, the 9th of August 2023.
Happy to move.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Seconder, thank you. Sorry, Councillor Leslie. Councillor Ring?
No, straightforward.
Thank you. Councillor Leslie? No debate. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous, thank you. 11.4, Community Development Committee meetings, the 15th of August. Could I have a mover, please?
Happy to move.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman and Councillor Bryce. Councillor Coleman.
Yes, thanks, Mayor Statham. Look, congrats to the Lithgow artists. They did very well at the Waste Art Regional Competition at Blaney. Our artists did really well and they should get kudos for that. I note the Community Resilience Office report regarding Wolgan Valley. It's a difficult time there and I hope that in the valley, all the best, and I hope we get a resolution sooner than later. Congrats to the S Bank House Museum in winning $120,000 caring for the State Heritage Grant for much needed capital works and repairs. I am pleased to see that an improvement, the village improvement plan is currently being updated or it's going into community consultation. They generally are overdue. In Forbes recently, they had a number of tree lights lit up with fairy lights. So investigating potential sources of funding and proposed lighting for Queen Elizabeth Park is a good start because there are a numerous number of regional towns with lightings through their park and it does actually add to the parks and the surrounds.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Bryce.
Again, a very good meeting. It's good the Disability Inclusion Action Plan. It's overdue for review. That has been reviewed. It expired in July 2022. So the focus areas are the building livable communities, creating meaningful employment opportunities, promoting positive attitudes and behaviour, enhancing systems and processes to improve access. I think very important for our community.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Anyone else wishing to speak to this? I'll put the motion.
Just briefly.
Councillor Marnie.
Just wanted to pick up on the blast furnace and Lake Pillins and also the potential for further work along Farmers Creek. Picking up on just a comment Councillor Bryce made about accessibility. I very much appreciate this. The work that's been undertaken to date has really provided a lot more people to have access to a extensive walk in what is a much more accessible format. there are some challenges in the upper end with bridges that are no longer functional. And again, I'll just mention that 3 words, asset management plans. This bridge is at the end of its life and it's just hanging on to the sides. So I appreciate that thinking, and also the village improvement plans, so which is a great concept and speaks to some of the motion that Councillor Ring brought forward earlier on about smaller communities having more control over their aspirations and how they realise the potential in their communities.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Anyone else wishing to speak? Right to reply, Councillor Coleman. You're right.
No, Mayor Statham, put it.
I'll put that. All those in favour say aye. Against? Yeah, unanimous. Thank you. Business of great urgency.
May not deem it so, but I'll put it and see what you think. There are some success stories, numbers of them, that come out of council. I was just in the tip today, and the Resource Recovery Centre is functioning very well already. It's something for us to be quite proud of, and also...
Sorry, what was your business of great urgency, Councillor Marnie?
It relates to us getting some media out around that, because at the moment it's making its way through the community via osmosis, and we need to fly the flag when we've done something good. So I particularly appreciate what the staff have done on that, because it's transformed the way we're doing resource recovery out of the waste stream.
I will take that as a matter of great urgency, because I know the tremendous amount of work that staff are doing. I think it's amazing. I'm looking forward to the opening, and I think the council is very set on getting a media person. I don't know whether it's out to the public yet, but I believe there's a media person required at council, which is very overdue, but getting the right candidate would not be easy for that position. But I do agree, Councillor Marnie, I will hold that as business of great urgency, because I think the community do need to realise what exactly Lithgow City Council are doing with the resources that are available to recycle. Can I have a seconder for that? Thank you. You're all up, so I'm just going to put unanimous. Everyone seemed to be putting their hand up, so I'll take that it's going to be a business of great urgency. And thank you for that, Councillor Marnie.
I'd like
all those in favour, would you like to speak to it,
I'd like the
Councillor?
motion to be read. I don't quite know what we're voting on.
Councillor Marnie, would you like to speak to that? Thank you.
Hopefully I'll finish with
I just want the motion read.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That the council's communication team bring forward a media release outlining the success of the Resource Recovery Centre at the Lithgow Waste Management Facility.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. So all those in favour say aye. Against? Unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Appreciate that particular great business of great urgency. The meeting closed tonight at 9:50. Thank you. Thank you for those people attending public forum. We welcome you all the time. Thank you. Thank you, councillors.